When we first started out, again, with the ignorance behind it, I thought, oh, this will be a few $1,000s to build this website.
And so being able to take care of that level of care towards your margin is a massive help in itself.
I wish tech were easier. I will say that is something I have struggled with.
You work so hard to bring customer on, and so that in itself is a challenge.
These small business owners will truly go out of their way to provide for you or to bring you whatever it is that you are purchasing, right?
It's hard to have hobbies when you're an entrepreneur. Welcome to the podcast From Cold to Close. My name is Saeed and I'm the founder here at SRC Growth Partner, a growth company that works with professional services firms from around the world to help them increase their revenue and profitability by acquiring new clients. My guest today is April Caldwell, founder and CEO of fayVen, a Tampa-based tech startup that's solving a problem every small business owner can relate to, finding the right retail space at the right time. fayVen is essentially the Airbnb for retail space, a marketplace that connects businesses who have unused space with vendors who need it, matching them based on customer demographics, like a dating app for businesses. Since founding the company in 2018, April has won 4 pitch competitions, bootstrapped her way to operating in Tampa and St. Louis, and become a pillar of the Tampa entrepreneurial community. April, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Tech startup, founder, your journey. We've had a chat before, but I find your journey quite an interesting one and one that many will probably be able to resonate with. Anyone who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, going into tech or anything like that. And so I like to start off every single podcast with a brief origin story of the guest. Are you able to share a bit about who you are, your background, and how you got to where you are today for our viewers and listeners who may not know who you are?
Yeah, I'd be honored to. So thanks again for having me. My story kind of starts as a small town girl, looking for opportunity and not really seeing it where she lived at the time, which was in North Florida. So my decision was made easy to join the military, and I went into the Air Force and learned the tricks of the trade for dental laboratory, which is like prosthetics, dentures, crowns, bridges, that sort of thing. And I did that for about 10 years. So I've lived in Texas, Colorado, Germany, California, back to Texas again, and now back to Florida, my home state. But in that time frame between 2000, when I graduated high school, 25 years ago, to now, after the military, I worked for the government on and off, and I worked for the VA in Austin, Texas for a while, for about 5 years. And that actually is the place where my entrepreneurial story began, because I was just kind of frustrated with the typical day-to-day operations of government work, and I thought there was maybe something else out there for me. So kind of on a whim, I decided to start a popcorn company. And it's an odd thing to start because I had no background in food or, anything of that nature, but I just really was kind of business minded and thinking what I could really get some good margins on as far as like how much it cost to produce versus how much I could sell it for. Now that was really naive in thinking because there was so much more to it than just the kernels, and the popping process. It took me a while to realize that, equipment was involved and the whole idea of running a business, like it's so much more than the product itself. And so, I did what every typical small business owner who's just starting out would do, which is go to farmers markets, set up a table, try to sell whatever products and, things that you have for sale. I wasn't great at that because I didn't have the background of how to set up a booth properly and what makes, customers stop and purchase, like the customer psychology behind all of it. Not only that, there's so much more to location, right? They say location, 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 because it's true, right? Without the right amount of foot traffic or the right customer base, you're really just kind of spinning your wheels. And for small business owners who have products that, go stale like popcorn, you really don't have a ton of time to figure out where to sell this product. I struggled with the fact that I was doing all this work, all this prep. My husband, who was roped into it reluctantly, was helping me on weekends to attend these markets. And, we weren't really showing profit. So after speaking to lots of other vendors at local events, with questions and finding out like, how do people find great locations to sell their products, realizing that there wasn't really anything like Airbnb for small business owners who needed retail space. And that's kind of my lightning bolt moment where, I said, oh my gosh, why don't I just create a platform, again, with no background in tech. So I had no business starting a tech company nor a popcorn company, I think what happens is the naivete of just having this excitement behind it is really what makes a lot of small businesses get started. If they truly know like the full scope of what it takes to get that business to a level of success, they may think otherwise. So that's the origin story behind fayVen.
I think you touched on a really great point in the sense that ignorance is bliss, right? And I think that's the case with most entrepreneurs when they start out their journey or start any company. Is like you have an idea, you have a business seems simple, it seems easy, the concepts are very easy and tangible, and like, oh, you just do this, X, 1 + 1 = 2, right? And you see it for face value. Oh, you just get new customers or find these people and speak to people, and then you build something and people will come, right? And then when you get into the weeds of it, you realize it's not complicated, but it's far more difficult, and influencing people to want to use your platform or have your popcorn or whatever it might be is without a doubt one of the biggest challenges you can face as a business owner and an entrepreneur. So we've got an idea of how you got to where you are. Talk to us a bit about fayVen itself as a company, as a platform. What problem are you solving and what your journey in growing the company?
That's great. We have made iterations along the way. When we first started out, again, with the ignorance behind it, I thought, oh, this will be, a few $1,000s to build this website, and trying to figure out the shortcuts really only made it more difficult because, you think, oh, I'll just spend a little bit of money here and then a little bit of money here, and then together we'll make this great product. And then realizing I've wasted that money because I could have invested this into the real deal if I would have just really thought it through ahead of time. And that's most people. And it wasn't like hundreds of thousands of dollars or anything insane, but it was just enough for me to learn that, okay, maybe I need to put a little more thought into this before.
Enough for it to hurt, right?
Yeah. Like, let me talk to some people, right? And figure out like what I really need. And is this product that I'm asking for going to deliver the solution that I want for this problem? So the problem is, right, small business owners, what they all really want is to have their own retail space. And that is just totally not possible, right? For most small businesses. It's not possible. It's not a good idea because rent is extremely hard to keep up with, and it doesn't make sense for every business type. And so when we see these pop-ups in these markets, those are the people who are really doing the hard work, but they're also making sense of every dollar that comes in, right? They're not worried about, am I going to be able to pay overhead for this building to continue to be here month after month? That is such a cloud over a small business when that's the one thing that they have to think about constantly. So we're giving them opportunities by providing different locations that may be not super typical for retail. So we've worked with hotels who have really good foot traffic in their lobby space. We've worked with universities who want to be able to provide their small businesses with opportunity to sell to students or people on campus. We've worked with women's conferences who have this dedicated audience for the day. And then they have all this great space in the back so they can use that to set up tables and have vendors there selling to that, ticketed audience. There's so many different ways to use fayVen. And right now it's on an event base, right? So currently how it works is a venue or a host creates an event for vendors to apply for. And so that's kind of a one-off sort of situation. But we are building a more like a rolling calendar opportunity where people can just have openings available on a daily basis that vendors can apply for.
In terms of actually I think that's really interesting, and I love the idea of fayVen specifically because it does, when you say it out loud, it makes a lot of sense, right? And it's like, okay, well, why hasn't this been more of a regular thing? What's going on? And the way I introduced you at the intro is like the Airbnb for retail space. And I think it's so interesting to be able to look at it that way, because there are obviously lots of spaces out there post-pandemic as well, like with commercial real estate and retail space, that's massively been affected. And so there's a real opportunity there for business owners and things like that to be able to jump into those little spots. What would the future of retail look like if platforms like fayVen replaced malls, let's say?
Yeah. I mean, you said something so, impactful, because it's like retail, especially post-COVID, has been sitting empty. Like there's so many places that are empty. And we're taking these empty spaces and turning them into opportunities, not just for the people who have and own that space, but for people who are trying or testing out locations. They don't have to get into these long-term leases to test out these spaces to see whether or not they are good locations for them, or whether or not retail itself, owning a space itself, is for them. Because again, like you said, like you don't get to try out a home before you sell it, right? But in an Airbnb kind of way, at least you get to see the area. You get to kind of test out like the neighborhood if there's an Airbnb in that area. So you're getting this opportunity to get a feel for where your vision of a future business site is, and test it out and see if your customers will come to you in that space. So yeah, we're giving these opportunities to both small business owners who have space and who need it, pairing them together without like long-term contracts. But not only that, the pop-up industry is so cool because, you see it a ton in California where you get like, okay, this big brand is going to do a pop-up. It's only for 1 week. The marketing ahead of time is super important, right? We're going to make sure there's some buzz out beforehand so that you're maximizing that time that you're in that space and that you're paying that money to really reach those customers and make sure that they understand this is a limited time only. This is a unique experience. This is an Instagrammable moment. And you're also working with these really cool event planners who have access to really neat pop-up decorations and things where it's eco-sustainable, hopefully, but also you're not investing long-term into shelving and, painting the walls and you're not doing any of that. You're just popping up something that will be easier to take down and pass along to the next person, or you're renting it, right? Maybe you're renting stuff, so it's not as expensive as purchasing the full buyout or build out of a building.
No, absolutely. And I think you mentioned as well, like the commitment needed when you're looking at retail space and actually having to go on a long lease and having to take out that space. It can be quite overwhelming. It's a huge overhead on the business, on the small business, and it takes up a large proportion of your margin, right? And so being able to take care of that level of care towards your margin is a massive help in itself. So I think is really interesting. If every pop-up told a story, what kind of stories is fayVen helping bring to life?
I love this question. What a cool question. So, we are hyper focused on the local economy, right? We want to support local businesses in the areas where these pop-ups are happening, because we want people to not just attend a one-day pop-up, but we want them to make these connections and have a new customer base and continue to support that community. I think it's like 70% of every dollar spent locally gets put back into the local community. And I think it's important to remember, like, how do we support these local small businesses, but also be able to have everything that we need for the things that we want to purchase, right? So we think about going to the big box stores when we need soap or shampoo or beauty products or whatever, but we forget, like, oh, there's these great small businesses that are maybe not as accessible as a Walmart or a Target or wherever, but you can still keep in touch with them in a way that is sustainable for your own economy. And it brings those dollars back to home so that your community stays strong and that those small businesses continue to thrive. And I think that's what we want for every community that we come into. We want to be able to support those local small businesses that keep those communities thriving.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer to the small business community. It's a real community in itself, right? And when you're an entrepreneur, when you're running a small business, it's not easy. There's so many challenges involved, and taking one big challenge away from someone in itself is a great way to be able to provide value, right? And provide back. So I think it's really interesting. What's something you believe about small business that most people would disagree with?
Ooh, I would say that most people would think that it's difficult to support small businesses routinely. And I say that because, again, like it's not as convenient necessarily as driving down the street to a big box store. But I'm telling you, these small business owners will truly go out of their way to provide for you or to bring you whatever it is that you are purchasing, right? So I've just met so many amazing small business owners who, and I think people as customers don't want to inconvenience people. Like that's something that we kind of have in our minds, is that we don't want to inconvenience them to have to ship something to us or deliver it to us or meet us somewhere. I'm telling you, these small business owners do not consider it an inconvenience. They consider it an honor. And if you're allowing them to bring the products to you, that is just something that they are over the moon for. And again, I think, the routineness of it, if you talk to them and say, hey, I think I need this product every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks. Is there something that we can set up? You'd be amazed at how flexible, and again, they'll go the limit. They'll go the extra mile to make sure that they're providing the best customer service possible, because of course they want you as a routine customer, but they want your reviews and your referrals, and the referrals, word of mouth are extremely more valuable than, just somebody recommending something on Yelp or something. So those word of mouth are great.
100%. It's providing a personal experience and a personal service. People remember that, right? And then they tell their friends about it, and they want to come back again with their friends or things like that. Like, how many times have you been to a coffee shop that was maybe a new coffee shop that you've gone, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, and you brought your friends along, right? So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. If you could redesign how cities use empty commercial space, what would you do, and how does fayVen fit into that?
Yeah, I think so many people these days want experience with their retail. They're not just leaving the house to go shopping. They wanting more. They want those Instagrammable moments. They want those experience. They want the exclusive fill in the blank, right? They want access to the founders, the persons who are behind the brand. So if it were up to me, there would be way more opportunities for those empty spaces to be turned into experiences. And yes, of course, retail, but also, other things, especially here in Florida. I can't speak for where you're located, but it is hot here and we need indoor opportunities to experience things. We cannot be in the outdoors in these elements, sweating to death. So if there are opportunities to be inside, let's make them. Let's turn them into revenue generating things for these small business owners, both who own the retail space and who need it. So I think there would definitely be more opportunity for experience-based shopping and fun things. I think people love a pop-up of any kind.
100%, 100%. And yeah, it's so true. And you mentioned it in the sense that the weather, obviously in Tampa in general, very hot. Like Florida in general, very hot. I've only been there once, but when I went there, we brought the UK weather with us, so we didn't experience that level, unfortunately. But yeah, no, 100%. When you create an experience indoors, like you can enjoy the outdoors, but obviously when it becomes overwhelming, having a place where you can go and enjoy and experience and spend time with your friends and do whatever you need to do, it's a great way to be able to spend your days and enjoy yourself. So I think it's really great. So you specifically, you've created a tech solution rooted, from the sounds of things, in human connection, right? How do you keep that humanity as you scale? Because that's going to be challenging, right? It's going to be tough.
Yeah, that is a great question. I think the one thing that happens to brands that scale too quickly is that they lose contact with their customers, right? They lose touch with the people they serve. And what's most important, not just in building a brand, but in the success of a brand, is to keep the customer as the number one. They're truly a product. They're the product, right? They are the person that you are. Without them, you don't have anything. So making sure that feedback, and I don't just mean like sending forms or, emails and things of that nature. I mean, automation is definitely important. And, we see a ton of AI coming into play, but getting those one-on-one conversations with customers, especially the ones who've used your product over and over and over again, just having that touch base with them, I think is ultra important. Also, I think this is something that's hard too, but when you're growing your team, it's super important to make sure that they're a culture fit, right? Like we need people on our team who understands what it means to have popped up at a market somewhere before. I want people on my team who have sweated it out in the heat of the summer and had to sell whatever, or maybe they're part of a family who own their own small business, a local restaurant or something. Like knowing that they have that experience and something to draw from so that they don't totally lose touch with what they're doing and who they're doing it for, I think is super important. So while growing the team, obviously culture is going to be huge, but those people who are invested in those types of customers and want to see them succeed, I think is also going to be really important when we expand.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's a challenging aspect because you keep it personal at this stage in your journey, but as you scale, it's inevitable how difficult it becomes, right? And it is about being intentional about what you do and how you do it, but understanding that and then going, okay, no, but I'm going to be doing it and I'm going to be intentional. That I think is the key, and actually strategizing how you would do that. So it's really interesting to hear. So in this segment of the podcast, we like to call the Entrepreneur's Room. And that's a series of questions we like to ask all of our guests to give our viewers and listeners an opportunity to understand how business owners and business leaders think and operate in their business. So the first question I like to ask at this stage of the podcast is, how are you currently spending your days as a leader of the business?
So what a typical day looks like for me is reaching out to customers, is trying to make sure that the platform is operational. It's working with our developer team. It's working with our marketing team. I think a lot of people forget this. I'm a solopreneur in a sense. Yes, I have a partner in this, but for the main parts of the day, I am in this 100% on my own. And so working with team, it's essentially just changing hats from moment to moment. Sometimes, doing some tech checks, making sure everything's operational. I was in mail jail for so long and can finally report, as of this morning, my SPF records are finally in order. After very, very many hours with AWS and the developer team. You know what I mean? So I'm doing a lot of other things that I wouldn't normally do. I'm not a tech person, but I have learned to be able to communicate with the people who are doing those really difficult tasks and just getting a good understanding from them. But not only that, that's one side of the business, but there's also the marketing side. I'm trying to get new customers. So I'm having these conversations. I'm creating landing pages. I'm doing a little bit of everything to grow the business while also trying to keep in touch with those persons in person, which means attending events, putting on new events, talking to vendors, going to networking events, supporting in multiple different ways. I will say I'm more of an mid-morning to evening kind of gal. The mornings I really reserve for just some quiet time and reflection before I get the day started. So for me, it's just making sure I have a clear head, getting ready. And, I think any entrepreneurs may be a little on the spectrum. I feel like you have to be, right? And for me, it's a matter of like being able to multitask and do multiple things at once while doing them well, which is tricky, right? That's a superpower I think I have, is being able to do things well. But it's also supporting in other ways, right, in the community. So I'm on a few different boards. I'm on the Women in Tech and Entrepreneurship board here in Florida. I'm also part of Action Zone, which is a local nonprofit for veteran entrepreneurs. I'm on a national nonprofit called Warrior Rising and a new one called Military Creator Con, which is a conference for creators in the military space. So trying to juggle a little bit of this and that while also managing all the things fayVen. There's some things I'd love to go back to when I have time, some hobbies and things I'd love to go back to when I have time. But I think at this point we're in the building stage. So that's kind of where my focus is right now.
It's hard to have hobbies when you're an entrepreneur, right?
It absolutely
And
is.
then I can agree. Finding the time to just go for a walk is hard enough. Forget about,
Seriously.
do you know what I mean? Or going to the gym or anything like that. But yeah, no, I think it's really interesting to hear you keeping yourself clearly very busy and active amongst the community in different groups and different advisory boards, and you're running your own business as well. So a testament to yourself in that sense. In terms of running the business itself, obviously you're a solopreneur that's managing teams. What are the most important metrics for you in running the business?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I look for when kind of considering myself a success or not is repeat customers. I think making sure that we're not churning out too many customers. I hate a one and done. I spend so much time bringing a customer on board that I would hate for them to have one experience with us and then not be able to decide that they want to do it again. I want someone who is excited about what we're doing and what we're providing to the community, that they want to do this over and over again, for not only for themselves, but to show how they support in the community too. So we have some great customers who've done multiple events with us. We love a local boutique hotel here in Ybor City called Hotel Haya. They've been a great partner for us year after year. And of course, we have the Women's Creative in St. Louis, who have been our first and best customer over the years. So they provide multiple events and opportunities for small businesses in the St. Louis area, and have also expanded into providing events in Tampa as well. So yeah, I think that's, yeah. Sorry, I kind of lost track of what we were talking about. My brain went doo doo doo.
No, that's absolutely fine. It was more around the metrics that you look at in success,
Right.
and you said repeat customers and making sure that, and that is a test in itself. You said it, you work so hard to bring a customer on, right? And so that in itself is a challenge. So when someone is a one and done, of course, that's going to hurt, especially for a small business. And for any business, you really want to be increasing lifetime value. You want to be increasing the amount of time that they spend with you and come back for more, because that's the lifeblood of a successful business, right? How are you currently growing the business? What kind of business development activities are you doing? How are you getting those customers and getting those active users?
Yeah, I think our newest way, so we've tried a number of things, right? We've tried putting ourselves out there to people who already run their own markets, and we've found that sometimes status quo for them, despite it being really a lot more work than using fayVen, is hard because people have a hard time transitioning from what they are doing to what they should be doing, right? So I think what we're doing now is targeting people who have wanted to start their own markets and their mini pop-ups, and becoming that partner who grows with them from the beginning versus trying to step in when they've already got a system in place. So I think that's our next step as far as acquiring those routine markets who will be able to provide opportunities for small businesses over and over again. Yeah, of course, there's always going to be a number of pop-ups wherever you go, but there's always room for more, I guess I should say. Like, there's always room for more. And we've done markets in neighborhoods. And if you consider that, every neighborhood has their own little community. So we could partner with, HOAs and people who have properties in the middle of their, park in the middle of their big neighborhoods, so that those, again, hyper local support for those small businesses who are in that area. And wouldn't you want to shop with and support a small business who is a neighbor, right? Like, if you have a neighbor who does something, oh my gosh, wouldn't you want to support them? Because of course you want them to be successful because they're in the same housing area as you. So all that to say is that there's so much opportunity out there. It's just figuring out who the target customer is.
Sure.
And really focusing on that. So I guess all that to say is that I think there's some new opportunities coming up for fayVen. And of course, the commercial spaces, finding the right commercial partners who are willing to try out what we have and really give these small business an opportunity to showcase what they have.
Love it. I love it. You've been an entrepreneur for many a year now, and you've started your 2 businesses. You've been on this journey. What's the biggest lessons you could share with us today for the viewers and listeners?
Biggest lessons. The biggest lesson I think that really helped me was to find the resources, right? There are so many free resources available. And when I say that, I've worked with universities and programs who have really gotten us to the next level that, didn't cost me a dime, which sometimes you're paying in other ways. Maybe you're paying in time or mentorship or some other capital, what you have. But I know when you're starting out, the money part is hard to come by. The cash flow takes a little time, right? So especially with something like a tech startup where those customers aren't clear in the beginning and you're figuring things out and the tech really is expensive. I've worked with Springboard out of California, which is a, UX UI designer school, who their capstone project was to work with a small business and create their wireframes. And, 3 months working together, they made the most absolutely beautiful wireframes. And it really did help put vision or help put images to the vision of fayVen, right? Like I knew what I wanted it to look like, but I obviously couldn't do it myself. So when I had a team like that work with me to show what every page and frame could look like, I was like, I've been waiting for this for so long. This is all, this is what I've been saying. I've worked with Florida Gulf Coast University to help with some beginning stages of development. I've worked with University of Tampa to get us marketing help. There's so many people and students out there that are learning and trying to figure out how to hone their skills, and they need some help with getting their portfolios together, if you will, that they have the time and are willing and able to work with you for free. And there's grants and there's pitch competitions, right? Like now I've done so many pitches that I teach pitching at State College of Florida. There's opportunity for free money, free grants, accelerators, incubators. I've been a part of Tampa Bay Wave, Embark Collective, Stella Labs, Bunker Labs. There's so many opportunities. The trade-off is time, right? Time and energy. Yes, I probably had a lot more time and energy because most of the beginning stages of fayVen was during COVID. So I had a lot of extra free time. That might not be something that you or another founder have in the beginning stages. Just make sure that you're utilizing these resources and prioritizing them according to the amount of time and energy that you have to spare. If it's taking too much away from you actually getting customers, then maybe it's time to reassess. But if you're in the beginning stages and you have availability and the bandwidth for it, do it. Get some free resources from different opportunities out there.
There's so much knowledge out there, right? And it's just about being willing to be curious, going out there, trying to grab as much knowledge as possible, and then applying it into whatever you're doing, right? Because there's a lot of knowledge out there, but if it might not be relevant to you, but if it is relevant to you, you're not applying it to your own circumstances. So being, I guess, intentional, I've used that word already today, but being intentional about how you're going to use your time and use the knowledge that you gain to be able to apply it to your own business and get the insights that you didn't know before, so you can apply it and hopefully find success in what you're doing. So yeah, 100% couldn't agree with you more. April, you've been a fantastic guest today. I like to end every single podcast with the same question, and that is, if you had a magic wand you could wave to solve one business problem, what would that be?
One business problem. Let's see. I wish tech were easier. I will say that is something I have struggled with, and I probably spent more of my own dollars on personally bootstrapping fayVen. And it is easier, right? It is actually getting easier. It's getting better. When I started, AI wasn't a thing, right? And so now there's so much available that wasn't before, and it's only getting better. And so I think the magic wand is wanding already. I feel like it is becoming easier for these non-tech entrepreneurs, and getting access to that tech, I think, is getting easier. Like the no-code stuff. Like, had I only known about that from the beginning, I could have. Yes, it will probably have to be rebuilt in the future once you get to a certain level. But in the beginning stages, that would have been perfect, right? For what we were building. I guess that would be my one wand solution for tech for entrepreneurs. But I will say, I think it is happening. So hopefully this dream will come true quickly.
Absolutely. The no code stuff, it helps you get from 0 to 1 much quicker, right? And much cheaper, and it gets
much cheaper.
Which always helps. It's like getting to that minimum viable product as soon as possible to just start getting out there and doing what you want to do. April, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, your insights, and your time. And for all those who may want to reach out to you, speak to you, how would they find you? How would they reach out?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have conversations with anybody. I really do hope to be able to provide some level of guidance or mentorship. I do that, of course, locally here, but really with anybody who wants to chat. So my email is info@fayven.com, spelled FAYVEN, or you can follow us on Instagram at fayVen. Reach out. I still manage my own social media. I told you I do it all. So I do manage my own social media. But yeah, we'd love to have conversations. And my husband, co-founder, partner, all of the above, he's also a really intelligent and a great mentor too. So he'd be happy to speak to anyone who's got some questions.
Fantastic. Well, April, thank you so much again. And I really appreciate you sharing your time.
Thanks for having me. And I really hope everyone has a beautiful day.
Great.